Hello, everyone. I promise you, what I'm about to show you today is not something ordinary. The half-dollar coin I'm holding right now, this is not your average USA half-dollar. These are not the coins people usually think about. And these are definitely not the coins you should be spending, because very recently, their value has changed dramatically, and I mean dramatically. These coins have suddenly jumped into the thousands of dollars. Yes, thousands. And here's the shocking part. People are still spending them every single day without realizing what they actually have. They look normal. They feel normal. They sound normal. But in reality, they are hidden treasure. If you have any half-dollar coins like this, you need to save them immediately. Do not spend them, because you might be holding thousands of dollars in your hand and not even know it. I'm not joking with you. And I'm not trying to trick you. This is serious information, and it could truly benefit you. So next time you come across a half-dollar coin, take a closer look, because that one coin could change everything. Welcome to Coins Half-Dollar, where today we open the door to a powerful forgotten chapter of American coinage. And if you think the 1995 half-dollar is just another modern coin, think again. Because this single year quietly carries decades of history, changing mint policies, collector psychology, economic pressure, and the hidden story of why the Kennedy half-dollar slowly disappeared from everyday American life. And as this story unfolds, you will see how a coin born from national tragedy evolved into a symbol of transition, survival, and quiet rarity. And the moment you understand the 1995 half-dollar, you will never look at pocket change the same way again, because this coin stands at the crossroads between circulation and collection, between public memory and mint reality, and between what Americans once used every day and what they slowly let fade away. The 1995 Kennedy half-dollar was struck more than 30 years after the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, an event that shocked the United States and led to the fastest coin redesign in American history, transforming the Franklin half-dollar into the Kennedy design almost overnight by 1964. And while early Kennedy half-dollars were hoarded for their silver content and emotional value by the mid-1990s, the story had changed completely because silver was long gone, public demand had collapsed, and the half-dollar had quietly vanished from cash registers across the nation. In 1995, the United States Mint produced Kennedy half-dollars at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, primarily for Federal Reserve storage and collector demand, rather than for everyday use. And this single fact alone explains why so many Americans today have never seen one in circulation. The Philadelphia Mint struck the 1995 half-dollar without a mint mark, continuing a tradition dating back to the earliest days of U.S. coinage, while the Denver Mint added its familiar D-Mint mark, creating a parallel issue that collectors would later compare for strike quality and availability. And while millions were technically produced, the real story lies in how few ever reached the public. The economic climate of the mid-1990s played a major role. Inflation had reshaped coin usage. Vending machines favored smaller denominations, and retailers had little interest in half-dollars that slowed transactions, so banks stopped ordering them. And when banks stop ordering coins, circulation quietly ends even when a denomination remains officially alive. The design of the 1995 Kennedy half-dollar stayed true to Gilroy Roberts' iconic obverse portrait of President Kennedy facing left with a calm, determined expression that had become one of the most recognizable faces in American numismatics, while the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro, continued to display the presidential seal with the heraldic eagle shield stars and olive branch symbolizing strength, peace, and continuity. And by 1995, this design had become less a daily object and more a historical emblem. The metal composition of the 1995 half-dollar tells another important chapter, made of copper-nickel-clad layers bonded to a pure copper core. This coin represented the modern era, far removed from the silver-rich past that once made half-dollars valuable in bullion terms, and yet for collectors, this clad composition marked a different kind of value. a snapshot of American monetary evolution. The minting quality of 1995 issues is a topic that continues to attract collector attention because while these coins were not intended for heavy circulation, many were struck with strong detail, especially those preserved in mint sets and uncirculated rolls, and today high-grade examples with sharp strikes, clean fields, and minimal contact marks can stand out dramatically compared to circulated survivors. The proof version struck at the San Francisco Mint adds another layer of depth to the 1995 story because proof half dollars were created specifically for collectors using polished dies and planchets, resulting in mirrored fields and frosted devices, and these proofs capture the Kennedy design in its most refined form, serving as a contrast to the utilitarian nature of circulation strikes. The broader historical importance of the 1995 half dollar lies in what it represents, a denomination officially alive yet practically absent, a coin that survived not through daily use but through institutional momentum and collector interest. And this makes it a perfect symbol of how American coinage adapts not by dramatic announcements but by quiet shifts in demand, production, and public habit. When collectors study the 1995 half dollar today, they are not just examining a single year, they are examining the midpoint of a long decline in circulation usage and the early foundation of modern roll hoarding, mint set collecting, and conditional rarity. And this is why pristine examples graded at the highest levels command attention, because they survived an era when most people simply ignored the denomination. The story of the 1995 Kennedy half dollar is also the story of memory, because Kennedy as a symbol never faded, even as the coin bearing his image did, and this emotional connection continues to fuel interest from new collectors who see the half dollar not just as money, but as history they can hold. And when you place the 1995 half dollar into the broader Kennedy series, it becomes a quiet but essential chapter linking the emotionally charged silver years to the modern collector-focused era. And without understanding this year, you cannot fully understand how the half dollar transitioned from a daily necessity to a niche treasure. And as we continue deeper into this series, you will discover varieties, strike differences, storage practices, and collector behavior that turn this seemingly ordinary coin into a powerful educational tool for understanding American numismatics at the end of the 20th century. And this is why the 1995 Kennedy half dollar deserves. Why the 1995 Kennedy half dollar deserves attention, respect, and a place in every serious collection, because sometimes the most important coins are not the loudest or the rarest, but the ones that quietly mark the moment everything changed. Imagine holding a single 50-cent coin in your hand and realizing that this quiet piece of metal carries the weight of American history, politics, culture, and changing times. And today we dive deep into the full, untold professional story of the 1994 Kennedy half dollar, a coin that most people overlook, yet one that perfectly reflects the state of the United States at the end of the 20th century. This is not just a coin story, this is a journey through power, memory, economics, and survival in a world that was rapidly changing when the 1994 half dollar was struck. America was standing at a crossroads. The Cold War was over. The internet age was just beginning. Inflation had reshaped everyday life, and cash was slowly losing its dominance. Yet the Kennedy half dollar continued to exist, not because people demanded it, but because history demanded it. This coin traces its roots back to tragedy in 1963, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, shocking the nation and forcing the United States Mint to act quickly to honor a fallen leader. The Kennedy half dollar was born in 1964 as a symbol of unity, grief, and national pride, and from that moment forward, every Kennedy half dollar carried emotional value beyond its face. Value as decades passed, silver was removed, designs stayed strong, and public usage declined, but the coin never disappeared. By the time 1994 arrived, the Kennedy half dollar was no longer a daily spender. Instead, it had become a quiet survivor produced mainly for collectors and government needs. In 1994, the United States Mint struck Kennedy half dollars at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints with millions. Produced, yet very few actually circulated heavily because vending machines, cash registers, and wallets had moved on. This makes the 1994 half dollar a strange contradiction. A high mintage coin that feels rare in everyday life, struck during the Clinton administration at a time when America was focused on economic growth, global leadership, and technological expansion. The design remained unchanged, with Gilroy Roberts' powerful left-facing portrait of Kennedy on the obverse, symbolizing strength, youth, and lost potential, while the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro, shows the presidential seal, with the eagle shield olive branch and arrows representing peace and readiness, themes that still resonated strongly in a post-Cold War America composition-wise. The 1994 half dollar was made of copper nickel, clad over a pure copper core, a reminder that precious metals were no longer part of everyday coinage, yet collectors still valued the craftsmanship. Strike quality and historical continuity of the series condition plays a major role in the value of these coins today, because most were stored rather than circulated, mint state examples, especially those with strong luster-clean fields and sharp details, are where collector interest truly rises. Proof versions struck at the San Francisco Mint in 1994 were specially made for collectors, featuring mirror-like fields frosted devices and superior quality, representing the highest standard of modern U.S. coin production. These proof coins were never meant for pockets, they were meant for preservation and legacy. The 1994 Kennedy half dollar also tells the story of a denomination fighting relevance. Half dollars once symbolized prosperity and generosity. But by the 1990s, they were too large for convenience, too unfamiliar for the public, and slowly pushed aside by quarters and dollar bills. Yet the Kennedy half dollar survived, not because it was needed, but because it mattered emotionally. Historically and symbolically for collectors this year, represents a modern-era coin that still connects directly to one of the most powerful figures in American history, making it accessible yet meaningful, affordable yet historic, and overlooked yet important. When you study the 1994 Kennedy half dollar closely, you are not just studying a coin. You are studying the story of how America remembers its leaders, how money evolves with society, and how even forgotten denominations continue to carry stories waiting to be told. This coin stands as a time capsule from the 1990s, a bridge between old traditions and a digital future. A reminder that even in an age of credit cards and online banking, a simple half dollar can still speak volumes. And as you watch this video and listen to this story, you will never look at the 1994 Kennedy half dollar the same way again. Because once you understand its history, its purpose, and its place in American coinage, you realize that this quiet coin is not ordinary at all. It is a survivor, a memorial, and a piece of living history that deserves attention, respect, and a closer look. As we continue deeper into the story of the 1994 Kennedy half dollar, we have to understand what was happening behind the scenes at the United States Mint during this period. Because the early 1990s were a time of quiet transition, the Mint was no longer focused on producing coins for heavy circulation, but instead balancing tradition, collector demand, and efficiency. The half dollar especially became a coin produced more out of obligation than necessity. Yet every single 1994 half dollar was struck with the same care, standards, and legal authority as any other denomination. And that is where its importance truly grows. Production numbers alone do not define significance. Meaning comes from context. And in 1994, the context was a nation redefining itself. The Philadelphia Mint continued its role as the backbone of American coinage, while the Denver Mint supported national supply, and together they produced millions of Kennedy half dollars that year. Yet most Americans rarely saw them in daily life. This created an unusual situation where a coin was technically common but practically invisible, which is why many collectors today remember the 90s As the era when half dollars disappeared from circulation, this disappearance was not accidental. Banks stopped ordering them. Businesses stopped using them and the public stopped asking for them, yet the mint kept striking them year after year, preserving continuity in American coinage and refusing to let the denomination die. The 1994 Kennedy half-dollar became a symbol of endurance, a coin that existed because history demanded it, not because commerce required it. When examining strike quality, the 1994 issues often show solid detail, especially in the hairlines of Kennedy and the feathers of the eagle. However, like many modern clad coins, they can suffer from bag marks and dull luster if improperly stored, which makes high grade. Examples increasingly desirable among collectors. The search for a clean, sharply struck 1994 half-dollar becomes a lesson in patience and precision. And that challenge is part of what keeps modern coin collecting alive. Proof coins from 1994 deserve special attention because they represent the mint at its finest. Each proof half-dollar was struck multiple times using polished dies, resulting in deep mirrored fields and frosted devices that highlight every design element. These coins were sold directly to collectors as part of annual proof sets, making them historical artifacts of how the mint engaged with the public in the modern era. Beyond physical characteristics, the 1994 Kennedy half-dollar also reflects a psychological shift in how Americans viewed money during this time. Electronic payments were increasing, debit cards were becoming more common, and physical cash was slowly losing its emotional connection. Yet coins like the Kennedy half-dollar maintained a sense of national memory. They reminded people of leadership, optimism, and loss in a way that paper money and digital numbers could not. This emotional value is why the Kennedy series continues to attract collectors from beginners to advanced numismatists, because it blends accessibility with deep historical roots. The 1994 issue sits firmly in the modern-clad era, but it still carries the spirit of the original silver coins from the 1960s, making it a bridge between generations. Collectors often debate future value and long-term significance, and while the 1994 Kennedy half-dollar may not command high prices today, its importance lies in its role as a representative of a fading denomination and a changing nation as fewer people handle physical coins each year. Pieces like this become more than money. They become educational tools, artifacts, and storytellers. This coin teaches us that value is not always measured in silver content or rarity, but in continuity, symbolism, and survival through changing times. And as this journey continues, the 1994 Kennedy half-dollar stands quietly yet confidently as proof that even in the modern age, coins still matter. They still carry stories, and they still deserve to be studied, remembered, and respected, where every piece of metal has a voice. And today we are opening the door to the powerful, often misunderstood, and deeply symbolic 1996 United States half-dollar, a coin that many people have spent without a second thought. Yet it quietly carries the weight of American history, politics, culture, and change. This is not just a story about a coin. It is a story about a nation standing at the edge of a new era as the 20th century moved toward its dramatic close. The year 1996 placed America in a moment of reflection and anticipation. The Cold War was history. The internet was entering homes. Music, sports, and pop culture were exploding. And the United States Mint was striking coins that reflected stability, tradition, and continuity. The half-dollar, bearing the enduring image of President John F. Kennedy, stood as a reminder of unity and loss, hope and strength and national memory. The 1996 half-dollar was produced at a time when half-dollars were no longer common in everyday circulation, yet they were still being minted faithfully year after year, preserving a legacy that began in 1964, just months after the assassination of President Kennedy. The coin itself features the instantly recognizable portrait of Kennedy on the obversa design created by Gilroy Roberts that captures both youth and resolve, a calm forward gaze that symbolized optimism for generations. The reverse designed by Frank Gasparro displays the presidential seal with an eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch representing military strength and peace, a balance that defined much of America's identity in the late 20th century. The 1996 half dollar was struck in both Philadelphia and Denver, with a special proof version struck in San Francisco intended for collectors rather than circulation. These coins were composed of copper nickel-clad layers, unlike the silver versions of the 1960s, marking the long transition from precious metal coinage to modern alloy currency. Yet even without silver, the coin held immense symbolic value because it represented continuity in an age of rapid technological and social change. Production numbers tell an important story. Millions of 1996 half dollars were minted, yet very few entered daily commerce by this time vending. Machines, cash registers, and banks had largely moved away from the half dollar, favoring smaller denominations. This made the coin feel almost ceremonial, a piece of history struck for tradition rather than necessity. Collectors noticed this shift, and many began saving rolls straight from the bank, meaning that high-grade examples of the 1996 half dollar are surprisingly common yet still meaningful because they capture a frozen moment in time, the proof. Versions, especially those with deep cameo contrast, showcase the minting technology at its finest mirror, like fields, frosted devices, and exceptional detail, turning a simple circulating design into a work of art. The year 1996 itself adds another layer of importance. America was celebrating the approach of a new millennium. The Olympic Games were held in Atlanta, and national pride was high. The half dollar quietly mirrored that confidence, standing as a reminder of past leadership and shared national values. While the world prepared for the future collectors today, look at the 1996 half dollar. Not as a rare treasure, but as a historical document. A coin that tells the story of how money evolved, how public memory is preserved through design, and how even overlooked coins can hold deep meaning for those willing to look closer. This is why the 1996 half dollar matters, because it bridges the gap between old and new, between silver and clad, between circulation and collection, between memory and progress. And as you hold this coin or even just study its image, you are holding a chapter of American history, one that speaks softly but powerfully about where the nation had been and where it believed it was going. And this is only the beginning, because the deeper you go into the Kennedy half dollar series, the more stories you uncover, stories of politics, artistry, economics, and culture, all struck into metal, waiting for someone like you to truly see them. As we move deeper into the story of the 1996 half dollar, it becomes clear that this coin represents far more than its face value, because by the mid-1990s, the half dollar had already become a symbol of change in American spending habits. Once a workhorse of everyday transactions, it slowly faded from wallets and cash drawers. Yet the United States Mint continued to strike it year after year, honoring tradition rather than demand this. Quiet persistence says a great deal about how America values its past. The Kennedy half dollar was never just another denomination. It was born from national tragedy and instantly embraced by the public in 1964, when millions were hoarded as keepsakes, and that emotional connection never truly disappeared. By 1996, the coin had evolved into something almost ceremonial, produced for collectors' institutions and those who still believed in the power of physical money to carry memory and meaning. The minting process itself reflected the technological progress of the era. Advanced presses, improved dyes, and stricter quality control resulted in sharper strikes, cleaner fields, and more consistent details, especially on the hairlines of Kennedy and the feathers of the eagle. These improvements are why many 1996 half dollars appear exceptionally well made even decades later, and why high-grade examples can still be found today. Untouched and brilliant, The edge of the coin, with its smooth copper core, sandwiched between nickel layers, tells the story of modern coinage efficiency, durability, and cost control, a far cry from the heavy silver pieces of earlier decades, yet still engineered to last generations beyond its physical characteristics. The 1996 half-dollar also reflects the economic mood of the time the United States was experiencing: relative stability, inflation was controlled, and confidence in the dollar was. Strong coins were no longer viewed as stores of metal value, but as tools of trust backed by the full faith of the nation. This shift is clearly visible in the Kennedy half-dollar of 1996, which relied entirely on symbolism, design, and legacy, rather than intrinsic metal. Worth collectors often study subtle variations in strike quality, luster, and toning on these coins, searching for exceptional pieces that stand out from the millions produced. Proof examples from San Francisco offer another dimension with their flawless surfaces and presentation packaging, making them popular among both new and seasoned collectors. These proofs were never meant for circulation. They were crafted as displays of mint excellence and remain pristine time capsules of the year. They were made. The 1996 half-dollar also serves as an educational gateway coin, introducing many collectors to the broader world of numismatics because it is affordable, accessible, and historically rich. It encourages deeper exploration into earlier silver issues, special mint sets, and key date varieties. While it may not command high prices, its true value lies in its ability to connect people to history, to spark curiosity, and to preserve a national narrative in metal. As digital payments began their rise in the late 90s, the half-dollar stood as a reminder of a tactile era when money was held, felt, and passed hand to hand. Each coin carried marks of circulation or the promise of preservation, and the 1996 issue sits right at that turning point, making it an essential chapter in the story of American coinage. And as we continue this journey, we begin to understand that the real power of the 1996 half-dollar is not rarity or silver content, but its role as a witness to change, a silent observer of a nation moving forward while still honoring the image of a president whose legacy remains deeply woven into the fabric of the United States. And as we move deeper into the world of the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar, we uncover the layers of meaning that shaped this coin into a lasting symbol of American identity, because every coin ever minted is a reflection of the era it was born into, and the 1972 half-dollar stands right at the heart of a nation, balancing memory, tradition, change, and modern economic realities. This coin captures the essence of the early 70s, a period filled with social transformation, technological innovation, and political tension. The country had witnessed protests, war victories, space achievements, and cultural shifts. And into this complex landscape, the Kennedy half-dollar continued to serve as a reminder of unity and leadership, representing the hope that President John F. Kennedy once embodied. The decision to maintain the Kennedy design, even after several years of circulation, was not just artistic, but deeply emotional. The American public connected with the design, and the mint understood that removing it would feel like erasing a national tribute. Therefore, the 1972 half-dollar became part of the living memory of a nation carrying forward the ideals of courage, progress, and national pride beyond symbolism. The technical side of the 1972 half-dollar tells its own story, and it is a story of precision machinery evolving, minting technology, and relentless production schedules at the United States Mint facilities. Each coin began as a simple metal strip, a copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel. These metal sheets were rolled, pressed, and cut with meticulous accuracy. The planchets were punched out like metal circles waiting to become currency, and as they moved through the striking chambers, the powerful coin presses delivered thousands of pounds of pressure, imprinting the bold portrait of Kennedy and the majestic presidential eagle on the reverse. But with such speed and immense pressure, came imperfections, and it is these imperfections that today create some of the most intriguing and valuable examples of the 1972 half-dollar collectors' search for doubled dies, repunched mint marks, die cracks, clipped planchets, and off-center strikes. Each error revealing the reality of mint work where machines operated around the clock and workers battled deadlines while maintaining quality consistency for the millions of coins needed by the economy. The 1972 half-dollar proof coins created at the San Francisco Mint stand on their own level, representing craftsmanship beyond ordinary circulation. These proofs were hand-prepared using polished dies and specially treated planchets, creating mirror-like surfaces and frosted details that glow under any light. Each proof was struck multiple times to ensure perfection. And these coins were never intended for everyday use. They were meant for collectors, historians, and those who understood the significance of preserving American heritage in its purest form. And when examining the value of the 1972 half-dollar, it becomes clear that its worth extends beyond simple monetary measurement. Its value rests in rarity, condition, and historical context. Pristine examples with sharp strikes and clean surfaces become prized possessions, while coins with dramatic mint errors transform into unique artifacts that capture the hidden world behind the mint walls. But the real power of this coin lies not just in its metal or design, but in the journey it took across the nation. Imagine the hands that held the 1972 half-dollar, the cashier at a small-town diner, the soldier paying for a bus ticket, the young student saving coins in a jar, the family using change to buy groceries. Each coin carried stories, moments, memories. And today, when collectors hold a 1972 half-dollar, they hold those memories too, a silent witness to American life in the 70s. This coin traveled through decades, surviving recessions, technological changes, and the rise of digital payment systems. Yet it remains a symbol of physical currency, a reminder of the time when every coin had weight, presence, and meaning. And as your viewers dive further into this 2-hour exploration, they will discover that the 1972 half-dollar is not simply a collectible item. It is a historical messenger and a cultural symbol. It marks the continuation of the Kennedy legacy, the evolution of American minting, the transition toward modern non-silver coinage, and the resilience of national identity, even through changing times, from the sculptor's vision to the mint worker's precision, from the collector's excitement to the historian's analysis. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar stands at the crossroads of art, economy, memory, and heritage, inviting us to look deeper at a coin that millions once used daily without ever realizing the story it carried. And as we continue unfolding this journey, you will see how this single coin connects to greater themes in American history, how it influenced collecting trends, how it reflects economic shifts, and how its varieties and rare discoveries continue to surprise collectors. Today, reminding us that even the most common-looking coin may hold extraordinary secrets within its metal. Each rarity today becomes a window into the craft behind American money. The 1972 half-dollar also reflects the story of American society, the shifting economy, the cultural changes, the Vietnam era, morale, the energy of the space program, and the continuing legacy of John F. Kennedy, whose presidency remained one of the most influential in modern American memory. Owning a 1972 half-dollar is like holding a piece of the American journey, a coin, touched by the hands of workers, soldiers, students, dreamers, and everyday families across the country, from gas stations to grocery stores, from shops on Main Street to banks in small towns. This coin silently witnessed the life of the nation. And even today, collectors seek it not for its silver, but for its story and what it represents, a moment in American history when the country was changing, yet preserved its symbols of unity, courage, and leadership. The 1972 Kennedy half-dollar stands as a reminder that coins are not just currency. They are artifacts, storytellers, and timekeepers carrying the memories of a nation across generations, and that is why the legacy of the 1972 half dollar remains powerful, enduring, and worth exploring for hours, because within its metal lies a story bigger than the coin itself, a story of America, its people, its struggles, its triumphs, and its hope for the future. And now we begin this journey through the full detailed professional history of the 1972 half dollar, exploring every corner of its creation, its purpose, its varieties, its collector value, and the hidden truths that make this coin one of the most fascinating chapters in U.S. numismatic heritage.